Are you in command of your mind, or is the world? Every notification, every headline, every demand from the outside world is a siege engine, battering your focus, your peace, your very sense of self. We live in an age of constant assault, and the terrible truth is that most people's minds are undefended territory, overrun by anxiety, distraction, and reaction. They drift through life as prisoners of circumstance, but it doesn't have to be this way. The ancient philosophers, the great Stoic thinkers, knew this chaos well. War, plague, exile, political turmoil, they faced it all. And in response, they developed an operating system for the human mind. Not a set of feel-good quotes, but an architectural blueprint for building an inner citadel. A fortress inside of you that no external event, no matter how violent, can ever breach. My name is Cassian. I spent the first half of my life building a business empire on the chaotic frontier of the tech industry. I achieved the success I was told would bring peace, only to find myself a wreck, ruled by every market fluctuation and competitor's move. Burnout wasn't just a risk, it was an inevitability. It was only when I was stripped of everything that I discovered this blueprint. I didn't find a new belief system. I found a set of tools. I learned how to be an architect of my own mind. Today, I will give you the 10 core principles of that architecture. This is not a lecture. This is a briefing for the engineer of your own soul. We will lay the foundation, erect the walls, and man the towers. Let's begin. The foundation. The dichotomy of control. Every great structure begins with a single, non-negotiable act, clearing the ground and laying a solid foundation. If you get this wrong, everything you build on top of it will be unstable, doomed to collapse under the slightest pressure. In the architecture of the mind, that foundation is a principle so simple it feels almost insulting, yet its mastery is the work of a lifetime. It is called the dichotomy of control. The man who codified this for us was Epictetus. Consider his life for a moment. He was born a slave in the Roman Empire. He owned nothing. His body was not his own. He could be beaten, sold, or killed on the whim of his master. And yet, from this position of absolute powerlessness, he became one of the most powerful thinkers in history. How? By drawing a hard line in the sand of reality. He wrote, "Some things are within our power, while others are not." That's it. That is the bedrock of a resilient mind. Within our power are our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions. In short, everything that is our own doing. Not within our power is our body, our property, our reputation, our station in life, anything that is not our own doing. I learned this lesson not in a philosopher's classroom, but in the crucible of a server room at 3 a.m. A flagship product we had just launched for a massive client went down. Catastrophic failure. Alarms were screaming, my phone was melting with angry emails, and millions of dollars were evaporating with every passing second. My first reaction was pure, unadulterated rage and panic. I was blaming the engineers, the hardware provider, the universe. My mind was a storm, completely useless. Then, standing there amidst the noise and the fear, a lesson I had been reading about finally clicked. I mentally drew a line. What was outside of my control? The fact the servers had already failed, the client's anger, the money already lost, the public perception that was forming. I had zero power over any of it. What was inside my control? My next command to my team, the clarity of my instructions, the calmness of my voice, the decision to focus on a solution instead of blame. The moment I segregated the two, the panic vanished. It was replaced by purpose. We got the system back online. We lost the client, but I saved my company and, more importantly, I found my foundation. This isn't just for corporate crises. A young man I mentor was consumed with anxiety about a promotion. He obsessed over what his boss thought of him, whether a rival colleague was undermining him, if the company's budget would even allow for a raise. I had him take out a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. On one side, he listed the things outside his control: his boss's mood, office politics, the budget. On the other, he listed what was within his control: the quality of his final report, his preparation for his performance review, his professionalism with his colleagues, his attitude of equanimity no matter the outcome. His focus shifted from a realm of powerless anxiety to a realm of empowered action. He didn't get the promotion that quarter, but he was unshaken because his sense of worth was tied to his own actions, not his boss's decision. He had laid his foundation. So here is your first architectural task. This is non-negotiable. Every morning, or whenever you feel anxiety creeping in, perform a control audit. List the things that are weighing on you. Then sort them into one of two columns: controllable or uncontrollable. Now, burn the second column. Mentally, emotionally, symbolically, set it on fire. Your energy, your focus, your time. These are the most precious resources you have. You must resolve to invest them only in the first column. This is the first stone you lay. Ask yourself this: are you an architect of your response, or have you become a prisoner of circumstance? Look at the worries you carry right now. What percentage of their weight is made of things you have absolutely no power to change? Defensive walls. Premeditatio malorum. With the foundation of control firmly laid, we can begin to build the walls. A fortress is not a fair-weather structure. It is built explicitly for the siege. Its entire purpose is to withstand attack. To build walls for your mind, you must not live in denial of life's dangers. You must anticipate them. The Stoic practice for this is called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This sounds morbid, but it is profoundly strengthening. It is the act of mentally rehearsing adversity, not to wallow in anxiety, but to build resilience and strip future shocks of their power. The Roman playwright Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in the empire and an advisor to the emperor, practiced this relentlessly. He would imagine losing his wealth, being exiled, or facing the death of a loved one. He wasn't being a pessimist, he was being a strategist. He understood that the unexpected blow is the one that lands with the most force. By contemplating potential disasters, he was vaccinating his mind against the shock and despair they could cause. He was thickening his walls before the battering ram ever arrived. Most modern thinking is the opposite. We are told to think positive, to visualize only success. This creates a fragile, brittle optimism. It builds a citadel of glass. The first stone that hits it shatters the entire structure. The Stoic approach is to be prepared, not paranoid. It's the difference between a soldier who has never been in a drill and one who has run hundreds of simulations. When the real bullets fly, one panics, the other performs. Early in my career, I was preparing for the most important pitch of my life, a multi-million-dollar deal that would either make or break my fledgling company. I spent weeks on positive visualization, seeing the handshake, imagining the celebratory dinner. On the day of the presentation, the projector failed. A simple, stupid, technical glitch. I completely fell apart. My mind went blank. My confidence evaporated. I had built a plan for success, but I had no walls to defend against failure. We lost the deal. Years later, facing another critical negotiation, I took a different approach. For 5 minutes every morning leading up to the meeting, I practiced premeditatio malorum. I visualized the worst-case scenarios. What if they laugh at my proposal? What if their lead negotiator is openly hostile? What if they've already secretly decided to go with a competitor? For each scenario, I didn't just imagine the event, I imagined my calm, rational, and virtuous response. I planned my strategic retreat. I rehearsed my calm closing statement, thanking them for their time. When I walked into that meeting, I was fearless, not because I was certain of success, but because I was fully prepared for failure. The outcome was no longer a threat. Ironically, that calm confidence is what won us the deal. I had built my walls. Here is your second architectural task, your defensive drill. Every morning for 5 minutes, Visualize a challenge that could arise during your day. It could be a difficult conversation, a project failing, or even just getting stuck in traffic. Don't just see the negative event, see yourself moving through it with calm, logic, and purpose. See yourself using it as an opportunity to practice virtue. How would you respond if you were the person you want to be? What you are doing is building emotional shock absorbers. You are rehearsing for reality. Do you spend your time wishing the storm won't come? Or do you spend it reinforcing your walls so you can stand strong when it inevitably does? Is your peace dependent on a perfect day, or is it forged in the anticipation of a difficult one? Transformation Chamber. Amor Fati. Your foundation is set, your walls are fortified. But a truly great citadel does more than just repel attacks. It has the capacity to transform the energy of the attack into something that makes the fortress itself stronger. This is the alchemy of the mind, and the Stoics called it amor fati, a love of one's fate. This is perhaps the most challenging and most powerful principle in the entire blueprint. It moves beyond mere acceptance or endurance of what happens. It is an enthusiastic embrace of it. The master of this principle was the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. He was the most powerful man in the world, yet he faced constant war, a deadly plague that ravaged his empire, personal betrayals, and the death of several of his children. He wrote in his private journal, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He saw every obstacle not as a roadblock to his path, but as the path itself. Every setback was not a bug, but a feature, a perfectly designed opportunity to practice courage, patience, or wisdom. A fire needs fuel. For the disciplined mind, obstacles are its fuel. This turns the entire equation of life on its head. Nothing is bad, it is simply more material to work with, more weight to lift, more fire to temper the steel of your character. I remember when a brilliant young engineer, the cornerstone of our most innovative project, was poached by our biggest competitor. It felt like a devastating blow, a betrayal. The team was demoralized. My initial reaction was fury. But then, standing in front of my worried leadership team, I remembered Aurelius. What stands in the way becomes the way. I looked at them and said, "This is not a catastrophe. This is a stress test. Our competitor has exposed a single point of failure in our system, our reliance on one person. This is an opportunity to decentralize our knowledge, to cross-train our team, and to build a system that is stronger than any one individual." That obstacle, that perceived attack, became the very catalyst for building a more resilient, anti-fragile, and ultimately more successful team. We learned to love that event because of what it forced us to become. Now, let me introduce a critical insight here. Modern culture is obsessed with optimization. We want to optimize our routines, our diets, our workflows. This creates a dangerous fragility. We design a perfect system, and when reality, in all its messiness, inevitably intrudes, our optimized system shatters. Amor fati is the antidote to this. It is not about optimizing for a perfect world, it's about making your mind anti-fragile, a system that doesn't just survive shocks but actually gets stronger from them. You don't just tolerate the unexpected, you metabolize it into fuel. Here is your architectural task for the transformation chamber. The next time you face a setback, a missed flight, a critical email, an unfair comment, pause. Before you label it as bad, I want you to say, either out loud or to yourself, "This is training." Reframe it instantly. This difficulty is not happening to you, it is happening for you. It is a custom-designed workout for your character. Find the one virtue it is asking you to practice. Patience, forgiveness, creativity, humility. Then practice it. Ask yourself, are you fighting your fate or are you using it? Do you see obstacles as punishments to be endured or as raw material from which you will build your strength? Type "Continue" to receive the next section. Inner Sanctuary. The retreat practice. Every citadel, no matter how strong its outer walls, has a keep. A final, unbreachable fortress within the fortress. It is a place of ultimate safety, a sanctuary where the ruler can retreat to find absolute quiet and clarity, even while the battle rages outside. In the architecture of your mind, you must build this keep. The Stoics called it the practice of retreating into oneself. Marcus Aurelius, who lived his life in the clamor of the imperial court and the chaos of the battlefield, wrote this for himself. People look for retreats for themselves, in the country, by the coast, or in the mountains, but it is in your power to retreat into yourself whenever you wish. For nowhere can a person find a more peaceful and trouble-free retreat than in his own soul. Think about the profound power of that idea. You don't need a vacation, a meditation cushion, or a quiet room to find peace. Peace is not a location, it is a capability. You can build a sanctuary within your own mind that you can access in seconds, in the middle of a traffic jam, during a heated argument, or while facing a terrifying diagnosis. This inner space is furnished with your principles, your reason, and your core values. It is the one place in the universe that is entirely under your control. For years, I believed that de-stressing required an external change. I needed to get out of the office, go on a trip, unplug the phone. But the stress always came back because I was carrying it inside me. My keep was in ruins. I began the architectural work of rebuilding it. My practice was simple. For 10 minutes every morning, I would sit in silence and do nothing but focus on my breath. But the goal wasn't just to be quiet, it was to build a place. I started to visualize it, a simple, quiet room, solid and silent. In this room, there was only my rational mind and my core principles. There were no deadlines, no emails, no market fears. It was just me. At first, it was difficult. The noise from outside the keep was deafening. But with each day's practice, the walls of that inner room grew thicker. Soon, I learned to access it not just in my morning quiet time, but for 30 seconds before walking into a tense meeting. I could retreat there for a single breath in the middle of an argument to find my calm instead of my anger. It became my source of power. A woman I coached was struggling with extreme social anxiety. The thought of a crowded room or a networking event would send her into a spiral. We worked on building her inner sanctuary. She visualized it as a serene library filled with the wisdom she admired. Before entering a stressful social situation, she would take 1 minute to mentally sit in her library to remind herself of her own values and reason. She said that for the first time, she felt like she was walking into events with a shield. She had a safe place to go, even while surrounded by people. The external chaos no longer had the power to overwhelm her internal calm. Here is your task for building the keep of your citadel. It requires daily practice. Start with 10 minutes. Sit quietly. Close your eyes. Visualize your inner sanctuary. It can be a room, a garden, a mountaintop, whatever feels calm and strong to you. Just sit there. Don't fight thoughts, just let them pass by the walls of your sanctuary without letting them in. This is your training. The goal is to make this place so real, so accessible, that you can retreat to it for a single breath in the middle of any storm. This is your unbreachable inner room. Ask yourself, when chaos erupts, where do you go? Do you look for an escape route in the external world, or have you built a sanctuary within? Moral compass. Virtue as anchor. A fortress can have the strongest walls in the world, but if it has no purpose, no flag flying from its highest tower, it is just a pile of stones. It is a prison, not a citadel. The purpose of your inner citadel, the reason for its existence, is to protect and cultivate your character. The flag that flies above it is virtue. The Stoics were clear. The sole good is a virtuous character. Everything else, wealth, health, reputation, is indifferent. The Stoics defined 4 cardinal virtues that serve as the pillars of a good life and a strong mind. Wisdom, the ability to navigate complex situations with logic and calm. Justice, treating others with fairness and respect, even when it's difficult. Courage, facing daily challenges with clarity and integrity, not just physical bravery. And temperance, the mastery of self, showing moderation and self-control in all things. These 4 virtues are the anchors of your citadel. When the storms of life hit, when you are tempted by greed, overcome by fear, or provoked to anger, these anchors are what hold you fast. Without them, you are just a ship being tossed on the waves of circumstance. The historical model for this is Cato the Younger, a Roman statesman and a fierce opponent of Julius Caesar. Cato was known for his unwavering moral integrity. In a city drowning in corruption and political expediency, Cato was immovable. He could not be bribed, threatened, or flattered into abandoning his principles. His character was his fortress. He ultimately lost his political battle and took his own life rather than submit to Caesar's tyranny, seeing it as the only virtuous action left to him. While his end was tragic, his life became a symbol of principle. He was a man anchored so deeply in virtue that not even the most powerful man in the world could move him. In my own life, I faced a moment where these anchors were tested. We discovered a bug in our software, one that could potentially be exploited by malicious actors. However, it was obscure, and the chance of it being found was minuscule. The ethical and just thing to do was to inform our clients immediately, which would involve a costly recall and a significant hit to our reputation. The smart business move, the one my board was pushing for, was to quietly patch it and hope no one ever noticed. The storm was raging. The temptation to take the easy path was immense. But I had been working on my anchors. I asked myself, what would wisdom do? It would choose long-term trust over short-term profit. What would justice demand? It demands that we protect the people who have placed their faith in our product. What would courage look like? It would look like standing in front of our clients and admitting our mistake. What would temperance require? It would require resisting the greedy impulse to avoid the cost. Anchored by those questions, the decision, while difficult, became clear. We went public. It was painful for 2 quarters, but we earned a reputation for integrity that paid dividends for a decade. Here is your architectural task for installing your moral compass. At the end of each day, perform a virtue audit. Take a moment and rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 on the 4 virtues. Where did you act with wisdom today? Where did you fall short? When did you show courage? When did you fail to be just? Where did you practice self-control? Be honest, not judgmental. Then, pick one virtue to be your specific focus for tomorrow. This simple practice keeps your anchors strong and your compass true. Ask yourself, what is the flag that flies over your citadel? When you are pulled in a dozen different directions by life's demands, what is the anchor that holds you steady? Early warning system. Negative visualization. Every well-defended fortress needs a watchtower, a high place from which sentinels can scan the horizon, not just for immediate threats, but for changing weather patterns and distant movements. This provides an early warning system, allowing the citadel to prepare long before the enemy is at the gates. In our mental architecture, this watchtower is built through the practice of negative visualization. This may sound similar to premeditatio malorum, but there is a crucial difference. While premeditating evils is about rehearsing your response to future adversity, negative visualization is about contemplating the loss of what you already have in order to cultivate deep, profound gratitude for it right now. The Stoics understood a fundamental flaw in human psychology, the hedonic treadmill. We adapt to our circumstances with incredible speed. The new car, the bigger house, the loving relationship, we quickly begin to take them for granted. They become part of the baseline. This is a recipe for perpetual dissatisfaction. Negative visualization is the circuit breaker for this adaptation. It is the practice of imagining your life without the things you value most. Seneca would often dine on simple fare and sleep on the hard floor, not because he was an ascetic, but to remind himself that he could survive without his wealth. But more importantly, it made him truly appreciate his comfortable bed and fine food when he returned to them. He would actively reflect on the potential loss of his friends to deepen his appreciation for their presence. Here is a necessary insight for our modern world. Our culture tells you that gratitude comes from acquisition. Get more, achieve more, buy more, and then you will feel thankful. This is a lie. It creates a fragile, externally dependent happiness. The Stoic insight is revolutionary. True, durable gratitude is generated internally, through the contemplation of loss. It is a skill you can practice, a muscle you can build, entirely independent of your external circumstances. You can be more grateful for your simple meal than a king is for his banquet, if you have properly trained your mind. I practice this every Friday evening. I look at my wife and spend a few moments vividly imagining she was no longer in my life. I don't dwell on it to the point of morbidity, but I allow myself to feel the sting of that potential absence. The effect is immediate and powerful. Every small annoyance or petty disagreement I might have been holding on to vanishes. It is replaced by an overwhelming wave of love and gratitude for having her here, right now. I do the same with my health. I imagine a day when I can't easily get out of a chair or go for a walk. In that moment of reflection, the simple act of standing up becomes a gift. This is your task for building the watchtower. Once a week, pick one thing in your life you take for granted. It could be a person, a possession, a capability, or even the roof over your head. Spend 5 minutes in focused contemplation of it being gone. Don't just think about it. Try to feel the absence. Then open your eyes and look at that very thing you still possess. Let the feeling of gratitude wash over you. You are not manufacturing a feeling, you are revealing one that was already there, buried under the dust of familiarity. This practice is your early warning system against the silent creep of entitlement and dissatisfaction. So ask yourself, is your gratitude dependent on getting what you want? Or are you actively cultivating an appreciation for what you already have? Command Center. Present Moment Mastery. At the very heart of the Citadel is the Command Center. This is the room where the leader receives information, makes decisions, and issues orders. All the strength of the walls and the vigilance of the watchtowers are useless if the commander is not present and focused. If he is lost in regret about past battles or paralyzed by fear of future ones, the fortress will fall from within. Your mind's command center is the present moment. It is the only place where you have any real power. Marcus Aurelius, leading his legions on the brutal German frontier, constantly reminded himself of this. He wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." He understood that anxiety lives in the future and regret lives in the past. Power, action, and peace live only in this single, fleeting moment. Now. The past is a memory, the future is a phantom. Your entire life unfolds in a series of present moments. To master your life, you must master these moments. This is a concept that is easy to understand but incredibly difficult to practice. Our minds are natural-born time travelers. I saw this constantly in the tech world. My team would be in a critical design meeting, but half the people in the room weren't really there. One was replaying a mistake from the previous project. Another was worrying about the looming deadline 3 months away. They were ghosts in the room, their creative and intellectual power completely squandered because they weren't in the command center. My own struggle with this was profound. I would be at home, with my family, but my mind would still be at the office, wrestling with a problem or a difficult conversation. I was physically present, but mentally absent. I was robbing my family of a husband and father, and I was robbing myself of the joy of my own life. The solution was a brutally simple but effective training drill. I set a timer to go off once every hour of the workday. A simple, quiet chime. When that chime sounded, it was a signal for a one-question check-in. Am I present? That was it. If the answer was no, if I was lost in thought about the past or future, I would take one deep breath and bring my full attention back to the task at hand. I would feel the chair beneath me, see the screen in front of me, hear the sounds of the office. I would bring myself back to the command center. A mentee of mine, a creative professional, used this to overcome her writer's block. She was so terrified of the final product not being good enough and so haunted by previous rejections that she couldn't write a single word. We implemented the hourly check-in. Her only job was to be present with the one sentence she was writing right now. Not the chapter, not the book, the sentence. Slowly, sentence by sentence, she regained her footing. She took back command of the present moment, and the book got written. This is your architectural task. You must train your attention as you would train a muscle. Set a timer, hourly or even every 30 minutes. When it goes off, simply ask, "Am I here now?" If not, gently but firmly escort your attention back to the present moment. Don't judge yourself. Just return, again and again. This is the practice of manning your command center. Your power does not lie in what happened yesterday or what might happen tomorrow. It is here. It is now. Are you living your life, or are you remembering and anticipating it? Is your mind in the command center, or has it deserted its post? The gatekeeper. Rational examination. The gates are the most vulnerable points of any fortress. It is here that friend and foe alike seek entry. A citadel with open, unguarded gates is no fortress at all. It will be swiftly overrun by rumor, panic, and misinformation. To protect your inner citadel, you must post a vigilant gatekeeper. This gatekeeper's job is to stop every impression, every thought, and every emotion at the gate and challenge it before it is granted entry into your mind. This is the practice of rational examination. Epictetus taught this with beautiful clarity. He said, "It is not things that upset us, but our judgments about things." A market crash is not inherently bad. It is a set of numbers changing. Your judgment that it means ruin is what causes the panic. A critical comment from your boss is not inherently devastating. It is a collection of words. Your judgment that it means you are a failure is what causes the pain. The gatekeeper, yes job, is to separate the raw event from the subjective judgment you immediately attach to it. He must stop that first impression and ask two critical questions. Is this true? And is this useful? I saw fortunes and companies destroyed not by market events, but by the panicked, irrational judgments that followed them. In the dot-com bust, I watched brilliant entrepreneurs, men and women I respected, get wiped out. The event was that valuations were contracting. That was the reality. But the judgment that entered their minds, unchallenged, was, "It's all over. The dream is dead. I am ruined." That judgment led to disastrous decisions. Selling valuable assets for pennies on the dollar, laying off key talent in a panic, giving up entirely. My own company survived that period because I had begun to practice posting a gatekeeper. When the thought, "we are going to fail," arrived at the gates of my mind, I learned to stop it. I challenged it. Is this true? Is failure an absolute certainty? The answer was no. Is this thought useful? Does panicking about failure help me lead my team right now? The answer was absolutely not. So I refused it entry. Instead, I allowed a different thought to enter. The market has changed. Our strategy must adapt. What is the next logical step? One thought leads to paralysis and despair. The other leads to action and hope. The external event was the same. The internal gatekeeper made all the difference. Here is your task for training your gatekeeper. For the next week, focus on the small, daily irritations. Someone cuts you off in traffic. A colleague sends a passive-aggressive email. Your coffee spills on your shirt. In that instant, your first emotional reaction will rush the gate. Your gatekeeper's job is to implement a 5-second pause. Before you react, before you feel the anger or frustration, stop. Challenge that first impression. About the driver who cut you off, ask, is it true that this person is a terrible human being who intentionally tried to ruin my morning? Unlikely. Maybe they are rushing to the hospital. Is it useful for me to get angry? Absolutely not. It will only ruin my own state of mind. By practicing on these small things, you are training your gatekeeper for the big battles. You are building the reflex of pausing and examining before you believe and react. Only truth and value should be allowed to pass your gates. Everything else must be turned away. Ask yourself this: are you the gatekeeper of your mind, or do you let any stray thought wander in and take over the fortress? Do you challenge your first impressions, or do you believe them without question? Training grounds. Voluntary discomfort. Within the walls of every great citadel, there is a training ground, a place where the soldiers are deliberately put through hardship. They drill in the blistering sun and the freezing rain. They spar, they struggle, they push their bodies and minds to their limits. They do this so that when a real battle comes, it does not feel foreign or overwhelming. They are hardened to it. They are ready. To build an unbreakable mind, you must establish a training ground within your citadel and regularly practice voluntary discomfort. Seneca was a staunch advocate for this. Though immensely wealthy, he would regularly practice poverty. He would set aside a few days to eat the plainest food, wear his roughest clothes, and sleep on the floor. He would ask himself, is this the condition that I so feared? By deliberately touching the thing he was afraid of, he robbed it of its power. He wasn't just building resilience, he was expanding his definition of normal. He was proving to himself that his well-being was not dependent on his external comforts. This brings us to another critical insight for our times. Modern life has made a silent, insidious pact with us. It promises us comfort, convenience, and the elimination of all friction. And in return for this promise, we give up our strength. We trade our resilience for ease. This pact with mediocrity ensures we will never face true hardship, but it also guarantees we will never discover our true limits or potential. Voluntary discomfort is the act of deliberately, and on your own terms, breaking that pact. It is choosing to walk into the training yard when everyone else is sitting in the comfortable barracks. For me, this practice took the form of embracing difficult conversations. I used to avoid conflict like the plague. If a team member was underperforming, I would put off the conversation, hoping it would resolve itself. It never did. The problem would just fester. So I started a new discipline. Once a week, I had to initiate the one conversation I was most dreading. It was deeply uncomfortable. My heart would pound, my palms would sweat. But with each one, it got easier. I was hardening my emotional and psychological calluses. The battle of giving direct feedback became a routine drill. This single practice transformed my leadership more than any business book I ever read. A young client of mine was terrified of public speaking. We started his training small. His first weekly discomfort was to ask a stranger for the time. The next was to make a brief toast at a dinner with friends. Then he joined a Toastmasters club. He was deliberately, in small, controlled doses, exposing himself to the very thing he feared. A year later, he delivered a keynote address at an industry conference. He didn't overcome his fear by thinking about it, he overcame it by training in it. Here is your architectural task for the training grounds. Once a week, you must choose one act of voluntary discomfort. It does not have to be dramatic. Take a cold shower, skip a meal, and feel the pangs of hunger. Intentionally leave your phone at home for a few hours. Choose the stairs instead of the elevator. Or, like me, initiate a conversation you've been avoiding. The point is not to torture yourself. The point is to quietly remind the comfortable, complacent part of your mind who is in charge. The point is to train your warriors. Toughness is not something you are born with. It is forged on the training grounds. Ask yourself, has your comfort made you fragile? When was the last time you deliberately chose to do something hard for the sole purpose of building your own strength? The Perspective Tower. Memento Mori. We arrive at the final and highest structure of your inner citadel, the Perspective Tower. From this vantage point, you can see not just the surrounding landscape, but the entire horizon of your life, from its beginning to its inevitable end. This tower is built on the Stoic principle of memento mori. Remember that you will die. This is not a morbid obsession with death. It is the ultimate tool for clarification. It is a filter that instantly separates the trivial from the essential. When Roman generals would return from a great victory, parading through the streets to the roar of the crowd, it is said that a slave would ride in the chariot with them, whispering in their ear, Respice post te, hominem te esse memento, memento mori. Look behind you. Remember that you are a man. Remember that you will die. It was a powerful antidote to ego and a potent reminder of what truly matters. Contemplating your own mortality does two extraordinary things. First, it creates a sense of urgency and purpose. If your time is limited, you are far less likely to waste it on petty arguments, meaningless distractions, or the pursuit of things that don't align with your virtues. Second, it shrinks your fears. The anxieties you have about that upcoming presentation, what people think of you, or whether you'll get that promotion. They all seem rather small when viewed from the perspective tower against the backdrop of your own finitude. I apply this principle every single day. It has become the final check on my actions. Before I react in anger to something trivial, I ask, on my deathbed, will this moment of anger have mattered? Before I put off a meaningful project out of fear or laziness, I ask, if my time were short, is this how I would spend it? This isn't about creating pressure, it's about creating priority. It is the ultimate organizational tool for your life. I once mentored an entrepreneur who was burning himself out chasing a valuation for his company. He worked 18-hour days, his health was failing, his family barely saw him. He was obsessed with the number. During one of our sessions, I asked him to do a simple visualization. Imagine his own funeral. Imagine the people there. What would he want them to be saying about him? Not about his company's market cap, but about him as a father, a husband, a friend, a leader. He broke down. For the first time, he saw the vast gulf between the life he was living and the legacy he wanted to leave. From the perspective tower, he saw that he was climbing the wrong mountain. He didn't quit his business, but he restructured his life completely. He started leaving the office at 5 p.m. He reconnected with his family. His business, fueled by a newfound sense of real purpose, actually became more successful. This is your final architectural task. You must build and visit this tower daily. You can do this by keeping a small object on your desk, a coin, a skull, anything, to serve as a physical reminder. Or you can do it as a mental exercise. At the start of each day, take 30 seconds to reflect on the fact that your time is not infinite. This day is a gift. Then ask yourself, given that my time is finite, what is truly important today? How will I live this day in accordance with my virtues? This practice gives you the highest, clearest view. It is from this tower that you can best command your inner citadel. Ask yourself, are you living a life that will matter? Does the awareness of your mortality paralyze you with fear, or does it liberate you to live with purpose and courage? Integration, your blueprint routine. We have laid out the 10 core blueprints, but a blueprint is useless if it remains on paper. The strength of a citadel is not in its design, but in its daily maintenance and reinforcement. Knowledge is not power applied. Knowledge is power. So, let's integrate this into a simple, actionable routine. This is your work as the architect and commander of your fortress. Morning Fortress Inspection. 1. Control Audit. As soon as you wake, before you check your phone, grab a notebook or just do it in your head. What are the potential challenges of the day? Quickly sort them into what is in your control and what is not. Resolve to focus your energy entirely on the first column. This lays your foundation for the day. 2. Adversity simulation. Perform your premeditatio malorum. Pick one potential difficulty for the day ahead and visualize yourself navigating it with calm, reason, and virtue. Thicken your walls. 3. Principle. Focus. Choose one of the 10 principles to be your guiding theme for the day. Today might be a present moment mastery day or rational examination day. State your intention. This raises the flag over your citadel. Evening maintenance. 1. Virtue, audit, and gratitude. Before you sleep, review your day through the lens of the 4 virtues. Where did you hold strong? Where did the walls crack? No judgment, just honest assessment. Then, practice your negative visualization by contemplating the loss of one thing you enjoyed today and feel the gratitude for it. This is how you learn from the day's battles and prepare for the night's peace. Weekly strengthening. 1. Once a week, perhaps on a Sunday evening, schedule a slightly longer session. Review your progress. Which principles are becoming easier? Which ones need more work? And critically choose one act of voluntary discomfort to undertake in the coming week. Schedule it. Commit to it. This is you, actively training your garrison. This is not another set of tasks to add to your to-do list. This is the very system that will allow you to handle everything else with grace and power. It is the most important work you will ever do. Your inner citadel is not built in a day. It is built stone by stone, decision by decision, day by day. You don't need to master all 10 principles at once. You just need to start. Pick one. Pick the one that you need most right now and lay that first stone today. The world will not stop its assault. The siege is relentless. The only question is whether you will be ready for it. Start building. Comment below with the one principle you will lay as your first stone. Subscribe for more blueprints on forging an iron mind. Your work has just begun.